Hello and welcome to the premiere episode of Movies and Tea After Hours. This is our spin-off series of sorts where we will be taking a break from our usual programming of director re-evaluations to focus on more sort of one-shot episodes where we'll look at sort of films that have hold an interest with ourselves or with our guests that we're going to bring on. And these are sort of like the films where we don't want to sort of dive into the whole filmography of a director. We just want to look at this one film. We don't want to see four other films that we don't want to watch just to get this one film. And tonight we're going to be kicking off with a film that both of us were very excited about seeing since it was announced.
Yeah, it was. It's obvious if you look at our Instagram that we're huge lovers of it.
Yeah, so tonight we're going to be talking about The Meg. Probably one of the more clumsier titled films of this particular film season. The film itself is based on the Steve Alten book Meg, a Novel of Deep Terror, which is the first in a series of books about prehistoric sharks or megalodons, following the marine biologist Jonas Taylor. Now, the book itself was released back in '97, and when it almost immediately after it was released, it was picked up. But the rights were picked up by Disney, and since then, it spends pretty much all its time in development hell. It's sort of passed from one studio to the next, and no one has ever been able to sort of make it work. And back in '96, I mean, it was supposed to originally come out around '99, but because of Deep Blue Sea, the producers got sort of cold feet that they weren't going to be able to compete, so they sort of pushed it right back. And then the rights eventually went back to the author Steve Alten, and he got really sort of frustrated with the fact it was going nowhere. And it was sort of like around 2005 he actually wrote a script, and he sort of submitted it to New Line Cinema, and it was really there that it got the intention of Guillermo del Toro, who passed it on to the legendary studio producers, who basically sort of kicked it out of development hell. And it's from this sort of period of interest, I mean, this is really around 2015 we're now talking, and the script is there being repenned, and unfortunately it comes to the desk of Eli Roth, who was attached to the project for a little short time and talked a real big game, but he wanted to basically rewrite the script. He wanted to be the leading man, which anyone who's seen Inglourious Basterds will know what a bad idea that is, because the man can't act for shit. And he basically, he had a big falling out with the studios, and took his ball and went home, and it was basically passed on to John Turteltaub, who finally after many years of teasing this film coming out, brings it to the big screen, with Jason Statham taking on the lead role of Jonas. Now, right off the bat, if you're a fan of the books, I have to say that this film, while it obviously shares the same name as the original book, it is a completely different story, which isn't a bad thing. It's just worth noting that you aren't going to get the book version of the story, and there's obviously a number of changes as well, especially in terms of the Japanese characters have now been changed to Chinese characters, mainly because this is a Chinese-American co-funding. So this is really interesting when we get into the details of the film, because certain details become really apparent as to what's been included, because you got to guarantee that foreign funding. So certain scenes have obviously been included to, help grease the wheel of the foreign investors. But I mean, obviously, opening thoughts on this one. I mean, obviously, I'm a big fan of the series, Kim, as I think that little nerd history sort of may have clarified for people there. But I mean, what was it that sort of appealed to yourself about this film going into it?
Well, look, I love Jason Statham, and I love shark films, and I love prehistoric shark films. I'm not gonna lie that it's a little ridiculous. It's a little crazy because a lot of people don't know this unless you follow my blog or you've been around there for a long time. I joined NaNoWriMo, and I think I've told you before that I wrote a story really similar to this one. It's definitely based like something really kind of off the, like, not the same scenario. It was more of a dystopian thing. But it had like a really similar idea, and I never knew the Meg existed. I never knew about this novel, and to be honest, like, just for all these elements, I really wanted to see where this movie was coming from. Obviously, my book will never see the light of day. It's been in, like, editing hell for, like, 4 years now. Maybe one day it'll come out, but not right now. But, yeah, I mean, I really love the idea. I thought that, like, an idea like this is really great. Obviously, I didn't use the Megalodon, but, I mean, I love the idea of a Megalodon being the central villain. And, you know, I mean, the thing is, like, I don't understand, like, I've seen a lot of people coming out and their reviews coming out, and I've kind of took glances of, like, just headlines of things of, like, how people felt about the film so far. And I have to say, like, I don't understand what people were expecting. Like, I see it's a shark film, my goodness. You know, like
yeah.
I think that the thing is that if you were to compare this to Deep Blue Sea, which happens to be also one of my favorite shark films, there is definitely a comparison. And I think that if you love Deep Blue Sea, you will find your love for the Meg. And I came out of the theater completely in love with it. Like, I had serious tense moments, and I had serious, like, roll my eyes, ha ha ha, this is a ridiculous, cheesy moment, you know? And I think that what you meant when you were saying, like, you were trying to appeal to kind of, like, the foreign funding, I would definitely say that chalks it up to the footprints of all those ridiculous emotional moments that they were trying to create. So yeah, like, some of the parts where you were talking about foreign funding, I could definitely see, like, I don't know how many people have watched Chinese films. They're not exactly, like, you know, top-notch. They're not to be confused with Hong Kong films, because they are different, and they are different calibers. I know Hong Kong is part of China, and a lot of people confuse it, but it's different. There's, like, different staples. I mean, you doing your Asian film knowledge, you probably understand it more than other people, I guess. And, like, what it is that you see a lot of, like, this emotional parts and dramatic parts. And it's so, like, you know, sometimes it's such a far-fetched sort of, like, a stretch to what the story really needs. Like, I always find it ridiculous when, like, shark films try to add in this, like, oh, emotional love story and, oh, all this family drama and all that stuff. And I'm just like, you know, these are just little things. It makes you kind of understand your characters a little bit better, kind of get an idea of who they are. But that's not really essential. And I think that that was the main thing that I didn't enjoy about the Meg. I don't know about you.
Yeah, I mean, I really enjoyed the Meg. I thought it was a really fun ride throughout. It moves at a really good pace, and it never really seemed to sort of stumble at all, which is what really surprised me, especially because here Turtletop really seems to be trying to do the Jaws thing, where he's trying to hide showing us the Meg, and he really doesn't. He leaves it to the end till we get, like, the really good shots of the Meg. We'll see, like, bits and pieces of it, and I think to that extent it gives us a really good idea, especially with the scale. I mean, this is like a 75-foot long shark, so it's not like the easiest of things to hide, and I think it's used very effectively. Now, I mean, obviously with the, you mentioned obviously with, like, the family drama and all the other gumph that goes with it, and I think to that extent it is used very well. I mean, we have the sort of will they won't they sort of love story here between Jason Statham's character and Lee Bingbing's character. She's obviously a widower, he's a drunk. It's all like it's this weird matching. It's because and I love the fact that they don't have them sort of making doe eyes. I mean, he's interested in her, but he doesn't really want to say anything because she herself, I mean, she's still not giving anything away, but we've got this, like, really adorable 10-year-old who acts as the go-between, and especially Jason Statham's interaction with this child
Yeah.
And I have to say, this is a really fantastic child actor, because normally as soon as you mention any sort of child actor, it's sort of like just the most cringeworthy thing. It's like, oh well, there goes the movie.
Oh yeah.
Um,
I mean, she's adorable. She is incredibly fun to watch. Like, she had some lovely laughs. It was like you just can't help but really, really enjoy her character being there, because she's not used all the time, and she doesn't make like dumb child actor slots, you know, like, oh, she doesn't happen to get like, oh, I decided to stay in the submarine to go like in the depths of the sea, you know. And at the same time, she's also very smart. She really has like that knowledge that she's picked up from just sitting around in conference rooms, listening to her mom talk about stuff and listening to her grandfather talk about stuff. And she has all this knowledge that, you know, you don't expect her to have, and she's actually helping Jason Statham to kind of be kind of more understand where he is, because he kind of just gets like plopped into this, and then suddenly he's like, oh, I have to go save some people who decided they wanted to kill themselves under the water and didn't believe him and thought he was thought he was crazy, and you know, all this stuff, you know. And it's done really well. I'm not saying like family drama is bad. I think that some of the parts were definitely a little cheesy. It was a little bit some parts weren't too necessary, but I do think that there were some really fun parts between like Jason Statham and Li Bingbing. I think that like there were some parts where they were talking like, oh, you know, oh, I would be like a little guilty, and she would do that to him, and there were like these little signs, and they were really adorable, because you don't really see Jason Statham in any romance in any films, if I think back. Like, obviously, I haven't caught up with some of his, like, later films in between I haven't seen. But, I mean, he never really gets a big romance, you know, and I like the fact that they're kind of just hinting towards it, and he does this kind of, like, you know, he's the hero when he needs to be, but it's also a journey for his character, because of the fact that, you know, how the movie starts and the hard decisions he had to make, and how he really comes to find himself being in that position where you see that he's not that kind of character. He's not like a selfish character. He's making the decisions, and they're well calculated in like how he's going to take his next decision.
Yeah, I mean, certainly in this version of Jonas, he's a rescue diver, and as we see at the start, he's been renowned for this speciality of doing especially deep rescue dives, and this is what sort of brings him into the group. I mean, in the opening, we see him performing a rescue, which sees him losing several of his team due to an attack from an unseen massive shark. And Taylor's basically written off as being crazy. He was suffering from pressure psychosis. And he's basically spent the next 5 years staring through life through the bottom of a whiskey bottle, living out in Thailand. And it's basically when his ex-wife gets stranded at the bottom of the Marianas Trench, which is where these scientists are investigating, because they're trying to find the deepest part of the ocean. And her team have basically got this submersible that is designed to go deeper than originally was thought to be the bottom, and it's there that they encounter the Meg. Now, he's originally, as I said, he's just brought in as a rescue diver to bring back his ex-wife and Laurie and her team, and through the course of his action, he finds himself drawn in with the rest of the team into this attempt to basically capture and hunt down this Megalodon that's now gone rogue, because of this interaction with humans. It's now been drawn to the surface, and it's basically does the whole giant shark and a rampage thing. And to that extent, it's really interestingly done. I mean, in particular, we've got the billionaire financer of the whole project, played by Rainn Wilson. Now, normally when we have the billionaire character, he's always like, money, money, money. It's all about the human cost is secondary to what the financial gain is going to be. And to that extent, Rainn Wilson's character is really interesting, because he's all about supporting the team. I think the most dastardly thing he does is he doesn't report it to the authorities and tries to cover up the situation that they've essentially created with this giant shark. But his character is all about, you know, what are we going to do to to stop this creature, and he's never trying to double cross the team or do anything else. I mean, certainly when their research vessel gets sunk and they end up on the rig and he goes off on his own, we see him talking to his sort of like game hunter, and they're there with like the depth charges and stuff. I've always, now he's going to do like his dastardly turn, but he never does, and I thought that was a real refreshing change for his character. And I mean, I'm going to warn ahead, there are going to be spoilers throughout this, but it does obviously lead into a scene which has got a really awesome death sequence. And I have to say that the death sequences in here are really well handled, especially because, I mean, it's a giant shark, so you're kind of limited on what you can show, because it's not like when we look at like Jaws and Deep Blue Sea, where it's all like a regular great white sort of shark, where you can obviously show it chomping down on things. I mean, because of the size of the shark, it engulfs things, and it's most effective when it just sort of like plows through huge groups of people. It's more just this unstoppable force that's heading towards groups of people. That's where it's so effective, or it like pops up and destroys boats or whatnot. I think one of its truly most effective scenes, and this again is a reworking from a scene in the book, is when we've got Li Bingbing's character Su Yin is going down, and she's sort of like in a perspex diving cage.
Yeah.
So it's like a glass tube. And Ruby Rose's character's, the shark's coming up and it's like chawing on it, and Ruby Rose's character's like, oh, it can't break through that. And she's like, that's the problem. It's going to swallow me whole. And I was like, that is just such a cool sequence.
Yeah.
The idea that we're going to watch a character get swallowed rather than have her surroundings destroyed. And that's the thing I really loved about the book, is the fact it's playing up a lot of things we know, and at the same time it's trying to do things that are a bit different. Certainly the final payoff at the end, where we're on the beach sort of massacre sequence, I thought just completely paid off in spades. I mean, you can see the setup coming a mile off. I mean, from the promotional material we've seen, just as soon as they mention, oh, this is one of the most populated beaches in the world, you just know, oh, wonder where this is going to go. And when you're looking at the way the scene's sort of set up, and it's very similar to when we look at like Piranha 3 Double D, Piranha 3D, where they got the lake party, and you can see where all the different areas are going, how they're all going to sort of like play. And when you see like the guy in the Zorb Bowl, you're just waiting for the shark to attack that. That's the whole sequence is just building up to that one moment. Although I did really love the fact that they play up the fact that you think they're going to have the when the guy's on the diving deck and he's pointing, you think he's going to say shark, but no, he's spotted young model tights on another diving deck. And again, this brings into question, obviously, with the finance and the fact that we're here in Thailand, yet it's a beach populated with young Chinese model types, which isn't a bad thing. It just made no sense why.
No, they were off the Chinese coast. So
were they?
Yeah, they were off the Chinese coast. Yeah, in the beginning they said that. It was in Sanya. It was a Sanya coast, which is I don't remember what part of China that is, but I think it's like more southern part. Yeah, they were off the Chinese coast. They started in the beginning. They were talking about why, like they were saying, like they zoomed in on the Shanghai, I think, and then they pulled back, and then they were like, and then they pulled away, and then it was kind of like they headed towards this off the coast, X amount of distance off the coast of China or something like that.
I think I must have missed that, because I saw like the Buddhist statue, and I was like, that looks like Thailand, and then I was like, well, why have we got all these model types who clearly aren't Thai in this situation? But obviously, what you're saying makes more sense now. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, it was like the Sanya Bay or Sanya Coast or something. I can't remember. I really liked all those scenes you talked about. I think that's the genius of it, is the fact that they were able to use it in a promotional material and really play it up, and you still felt it being really refreshing to watch. And it didn't feel like the trailer kind of destroyed it. Because this is one of those rare situations. Like, I don't usually watch a lot of trailers, especially for horror thrillers, because I feel like they end up choosing the wrong things and then they show too much. But I actually followed a lot of the Meg trailers Just sheer excitement. It takes a lot for me to not like a shark film. I mean, I think the only one I remembered was like Shark Night or something like that. That was the one I had big problems with. But I mean, like, I thought like all those scenes were executed so well, and I think that you make a really good point. It's one of the reasons why I like the reef so much, is the fact that is because of kind of like the idea that they don't show the Megalodon that much, and they show like little parts of it. And I have to say, like, I really like, because of the times, we ended up shelling out for like the really good screening. So we shelled out for the Ultra AVX and 3D. So I was a little worried at first, because I was like, oh man, you know, like 3D films, usually it really doesn't make a difference. And I don't really think it made that big of a difference, but there were some scenes that definitely like brought in like that tension and that scare because of it.
Yeah.
And I have to say, like, just because of, I don't know, like I had some genuine tense moments. Like, I literally like jumped out of my seat and then I fell backwards and was all like, what happened, you know? And I was just like, really, really intense moments. And I haven't felt that about a shark movie in a really long time. So I'm really happy with it. I guess I don't understand why, like, it's doing well, but then the critics are not doing so hot on it either. So I mean, the problem is that this is a giant shark movie. You can only go so smart with the material here. I mean, it's not that sort of movie. It does what it needs to do, and at the same time, it doesn't feel like you're watching a dumb shark movie. I mean, everything feels very logical. I mean, it's, as I said, it's, you know, it's just basic. As I say, it's just a giant shark movie. We got a giant shark. We're gonna hunt the shark. That's basically the whole premise here. We're in different situations where we have to rescue people from this shark, and you know, we're all gonna build up to this big beach carnage sequence. And I think, obviously, being a fan of reading the book, I mean, there were certain sequences I hoped would come in there, and certainly when I saw that Perspex tube, I thought that it was a similar scene from the book that had been carried across, but it's not. It's, as I said, they take the same scene but just rework it for the film. Certainly, when in terms of the book, how the Meg gets to the surface made a lot more sense, because in the film they obviously annoyed, so you've got this cold layer, and then underneath it you've got like a warm layer, so it forms like a second world, so these creatures can exist in there. And certainly in the book, because they're putting down these earthquake detection units and they're bringing it up, and this Meg gets caught up in the chain, so it's been hoisted up, and then a female Meg basically bursts through it and uses the warm blood as way to get to the surface. And we don't have anything like that in this film. It's just basically like, oh, the shark knows we're here. Oh, it just magically is able to now go up to the surface, despite the fact it's not done it in all these millions of years that it's been down there, we can assume. Well, I mean, it was because of them disturbing it, right? They had that burst, and it had opened up the passageway. And I thought, you know, for a shark film, that made sense. You know, that made sense that you would have opened it up and the shark got through, and like, that's it, you know?
Okay.
You know, I thought they explained it well enough to explain why that would have happened. In the sense that, you know, they were like, oh, it opened up like this shot of air, warm air that kind of gave them a little channel, and then it closed up afterwards. So nothing else could have gone through because, you know, obviously they're not going to go into this like cold layer. Although, I don't know, I mean, I guess like, I never really think so deeply about shark films. They're meant to be a little silly. They're meant to deliver a certain intensity for what it's trying to do. And for the Meg, I mean, how much can you talk about for shark films, right? You have to see what type of films you really like, what type of shark films you really like before you can really decide on what type of films you like. I'm sure there's people who like Shark Night, and I don't. But at the same time, I've had like genuine discussions about people who don't like The Reef, and I love The Reef, you know? So, I mean, what can you say, right? I mean, I like smart shark films, but I also like crappy, so bad it's good movies like Sharknado. So you have films like that, and you think about like what is your tolerance and what is your what makes you love shark films a lot. And I think The Meg nails a lot of this balancing act of creating a film which gives you these really exciting scenes. And if you're a shark film fan, like, I think it ticks a lot of the boxes.
Oh yeah, I think that certainly where the Meg obviously has the advantage here is the fact that the Sci-Fi Channel have spent so many years watering down the shark movie genre that it's now when you have like the one that's slightly a bit good, it just feels like amplified by 5 how good this movie actually is. And I think we're seeing something like a renaissance. Renaissance in the shark movies, because we've now had pretty much 2 good shark movies pretty close together. When we had The Shallows, and now we've obviously had The Meg, and I really would love to see them do a series with The Meg. I feel that certainly there's a lot of material in the books, and they could really do something really interesting with these books. I mean, just to obviously touch on the books, I mean, the books themselves, the sharks in the books are white because they're obviously in the depths of the ocean, and in the film they were originally going to be white as well, but the CGI didn't translate, so they never looked white, and that's why they now in the film look like giant great white sharks, which to be honest didn't bother me at all. The other main sort of thing with the books is that they're building this giant sort of like ocean study arena for studying whales, and they basically at the end of the book they capture one of the megalodons in this pool, and they find out that it's actually pregnant, and gives birth to pups, and the whole series from that point goes on to them sort of like Jonas and his family's sort of relationship with these sharks, the fact that they're trying to keep them in captivity, and that at the same time they've got to deal with that when they eventually and inevitably escape, and how this withdraws them back into the trench. Now, in the books, the trench itself, it isn't just megalodons, and we do see this hinted at in the film as we get the giant squid, as there's all sorts of other prehistoric monsters down there, and it becomes kind of like a Jurassic Park style ventures that they embark on, but you know, the aquatic version, as every time they go in the trench they find like different sort of dinosaurs and style creatures from that sort of era. I mean, the book opens with a megalodon killing a T-Rex, which historically doesn't even match up because they're from 2 different time periods. I mean, Tyrannosaurus Rex and that have been wiped out through the extinction of life on this planet due to whatever scientific theory you want to go with, be it meteorite or disease or whatever, and megalodons came after. But it's a really cool scene, and I really hope to see it in the film. It didn't happen. Big depression for myself, but I'll get over it. And certainly as we get into later books, I mean, we're obviously it's now at the point where you've got this Sultan character who's got this aquarium that he's planning on stocking with these prehistoric creatures, so you're having dives to go on these hunting missions to gather these creatures from the depths, all the while having to deal with like the Megs and other sort of creatures that are down there. And the books themselves are really fun pulp reads. If you want something for the airport, the commute, I really recommend checking out Steve Alten's series. He's written other books, but the Meg ones are sort of like what Alex Cross is to James Patterson. They're his sort of like bread and butter. They're his real money makers. And I'm thinking if you enjoyed this film, I would definitely recommend checking the books out. As I said, the book is completely different than the film, so you know it's a completely new adventure for you to enjoy. And there's currently 5 books at the time of recording. There's a 6th one on its way, and they built up really nicely. Just each new adventure, and some of them they have got their random moments, but they're certainly well worth checking out, much like this film. So, I mean, I don't. As you said, it's a giant shark movie. There's not a huge amount of depth and deep thinking to it.
I think I think the best way to describe this is if you are. I actually thought your Jurassic Park thing was something that I was going to talk about next. Was that that it's even in the trailer. In the trailer, when you see the Megalodon, like show up, and the little girl has a little like a lit up ball that she's playing with and balancing around. And she walks down, she turns around, there's this giant shark that's just like staring at her. And then he just opens his mouth and chomps down. And that whole scene reminded me of Jurassic Park. And I was like, crap, this is like amazing. I love this already. Like, and in the context of where we were at that film, at that point, it was just so perfect. And I think that's the thing, is if you really like this kind of story, and I really want to have a sequel. I would love The Meg to get a sequel. I would love for Jason Statham to be able to have this sort of shark film franchise under his belt. Like, he fits in Jonas Taylor so well, and I really loved what he was able to bring to it. And I mean, I think the China and China-American collaboration worked really well. There are some that don't work so well, and despite some of the factors that I thought were a little bit, it never really felt like it was, like something I didn't get or that I couldn't accept. I mean, I like The Meg. Like, if I was talking about, like, it would be definitely comparable to something like Deep Blue Sea, something comparable to, like, something like Jurassic Park in a way, but, obviously it's not Steven Spielberg, so you're not comparing I mean, John Turtletub, or how do you say his name?
I believe that's how you pronounce it.
Yeah, okay. I mean, if you look at what he's done directing for, he doesn't direct a whole lot, but he's directed, like, what, National Treasure and While You Were Sleeping, and I mean, this director is, like, cut out for something I like, because I liked all the films he made, even Sorcerer's Apprentice, so I mean, he was destined to work for me, I guess. Except for Las Vegas. I don't think I want to watch that. But, I mean, I like his filming style. And I think that there were some solidly beautiful shots of how he, like, handled the shark and how much you were going to see the Meg. And how much, and just the sheer size, making it how frightening it was. And these last minute twists that he adds to it. And all these things. I've never read the book. I don't know, I don't know if I mentioned that before, but I haven't read the books, and I don't know the context of it. I do want to read it. I want to, like, obviously it's different, as you said, but, I'm really interested in seeing, like, if this gets enough box office that it's going to do well. I mean, as of recording right now, the articles are saying that it crushed the opening weekend of all its competitors, so, I don't know, maybe we'll see a green light for a sequel.
I would hope so. I mean, it's different enough. I mean, let's look at what we got. At the moment, we've got a lot of superhero movies coming out. We've got Star Wars movies being crammed down our throat. I mean, The Meg is different. And it means that you can go and watch something disposable and fun without having to think, oh, how's this going to play into, like, a larger sort of franchise? Because, as I said, it's its own beast. And it's just a fun time at the movies, really. And as I said, if they're going to borrow more material from the book, I mean, the villains who obviously show up in, like, the books and that want to obviously, like, manipulate this world for themselves, they're all very sort of like James Bond-esque, over the top style villains, because that's the style of writing, and that's what you need in those sorts of books. You don't want someone who's, like, complex and stuff. You just want some villain who's got very clear motives, who wants to manipulate the situation whatever way they can. And I think certainly when you mentioned about the scene where we see the Meg head on, I mean, I just had a complete fanboy moment there, because obviously she's wearing, these are like real reference drops to fans of the books that they included here, because the little girl's wearing angel wings, and Angel is the name of the Meg in the book. And the fact that when the sharks comes head on, that's basically a replica of the cover of the fourth book, Hell's Aquarium. So I was just like completely lost it as a fan. And as soon as we saw the whales earlier in that sequence, and it's all like, oh, look at the whales, and it's like, I knew those whales weren't going to be around for long. As soon as that Meg turned up here, it's like, how long is it before we start seeing whales getting chewed up? And it kind of delivered on all your expectations. It's all like, whatever you want to see, it kind of delivers upon that. And I generally cared about these characters. I mean, they're perhaps not the most developed characters at times, and some of the plot lines are a bit outlandish. Like, I believe it's his ex-wife character who's apparently torpedoed a whaling vessel or something, and she's supposedly got this rebellious past. And we've got Ruby Rose once again playing the hacker style character because, you know, that's what she has to play because she's the tattooed hot chick, and, you know.
I love Ruby Rose. I'm not gonna lie. I love Ruby Rose, and I was genuinely scared they would give her that Resident Evil final chapter death. Because she keeps falling into the frickin' water, you know? So
I know.
I really like Ruby Rose. I love her coolness. I've loved her ever since she was in Orange is the New Black. And I really think that, like, I know she's a very typical character. She gets, like, stuck in this, like, niche character that she always gets cast in. But I love the attitude, and I love, like, her style and that sort of character that she adds to a movie like this.
Yeah, I think definitely all the cast here, for the most part, I mean, they're playing things how you want them to play. I mean, Jason Statham's sort of like your gruff hero who's constant. As I said, I love the fact he throws in a Finding Dory reference when he's swimming out to be human bait. He's sort of like swim, which is from Finding Dory. And I thought,
yeah.
Wow, Jason Statham doing a Finding Dory reference. Who'd have thought? But yeah, I mean, he's got that sort of gruff charm, and I think again the interactions between these characters is so believable, and you do care about this little group of characters, and that when one of them does meet a demise, it matters to you. It's not like, oh, it's just disposable character there. I don't care if he's gone, or they're just like so annoying that you're sort of praying for them. You do actually care about the members of this group. So when we have moments where, like, the ship sinks and they're all in the water, it's sort of like, who's going to get out of this? So who's going to survive this? So you do, obviously, I think it is refreshing to actually have a group of characters you generally care about. As for where this sort of ranks in, like, the greater ranking of shark movies, I mean, no, this isn't the new Jaws. I mean, this isn't as good as Jaws 2, especially. This is certainly up there with, like, The Shallows and Deep Blue Sea. It's sort of like that second tier of shark movies. It's like miles ahead of every other Drek that, you know, the Sci-Fi Channel's been churning out for quite a while, and it's refreshing to actually have a good shark movie again. And as I said, it's I was not disappointed, which I was pleasantly surprised. I was like so worried going into this, especially from having built it up in my own head for so long, that when it finally came out, that it actually just delivers how I want it to do. I mean, certainly some of the sequences, they can seem a bit frothy, especially like in the beat sequence. There's a lot of water getting thrown on, so it's hard to focus on what's going on. But yeah, I mean, apart from like scenes that I would like to have seen in the book that mysteriously seem to be turning up in the Jurassic World franchise, such as in Jurassic World, when we see it jump out and grab the shark. Yeah, that's a scene from the second book that they basically have freeloaded, but with all the controversy with like SeaWorld and keeping large animals in captivity, I don't think that we're ever going to see that scene in the Meg franchise. So I don't know. Good for them, I guess. But yeah, I'm going to stop ranting about...
I can talk shark movies forever, honestly. And we need to find some way to end this. So, I mean, in a nutshell, I love this film. I thought it was really great. I think I gave it a pretty high score on Letterboxd. It was something I really wanted, and it didn't disappoint me. It actually ticked a lot of boxes. I would love to see this not in 3D, just to see if whether the 3D was a fact that I got so tense in the theater, and I was like literally jumping in the back of my seat and getting scared and kicking my feet up, and it was a real intense moment.
Cool. Yeah, I think on Letterboxd, I've rated it higher than a lot of people have on Letterboxd. But you know, it's definitely for myself. I would say it's definitely worth giving a watch. I don't think it's gonna be one to keep, but it's certainly a fun experience while it lasts.
Yeah, for sure. I agree. I might actually rewatch this. I actually thought it was really good. I had a lot of fun with it.
Cool. Well, I guess this brings us to the end of our first episode of the After Hours portion of this podcast. We hope you obviously enjoyed it. If you do obviously want to listen to any of our shows, then please do hit the subscribe button if you listen to us on iTunes or Podomatic. You can also check out our blog, which has got a complete collection of all our past episodes, and you can find that at moviesandteapodcast.wordpress.com. On there as well, you can find other fun articles, such as the tourist pieces and reviews that we've written for the Paul W. Sanderson films we covered in our first season, and no doubt some other interesting bits of writing that will be going up over the next few months. But as always, I'd like to thank my co-host, Miss Kim Lowe.
Thank you for actually setting up this surprise, spontaneous recording for the Meg, since we rarely ever go to the theaters.
That's true. And as I said, until next time, this is Elwood Jones wishing you all a good night.